All right, so are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So grab those remotes, but don't press it. Don't press that play button yet. Have your thumb on the play button, your trigger thumb on that play button, but don't press it, because we are going to do that at the same time. Hold on a second. Let me get the time code going. We are going to do that at the same time on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
That was a
Like
very
a dramatic
extended
pause.
count. Yeah, that was so
Did that not was it not obvious that I was trying to get the Remarkist app to open?
No, not at all.
No. Welcome back, John, by the way. For those of
Thank
us who
you.
didn't get to go to
Good to be
FanFest,
back.
good to hear you again.
And also good to be back at this point in the story, you know? Like, I was talking about this at FanFest, that I really love the later seasons, because they get really intense and dark and, a little scary.
You love your drama and conflict, don't
I
you?
like my drama, but it is kind of nice to go back, to go back, and there is some comfort in a time when things weren't quite so heavy and scary, and the world wasn't this big place that was going to gobble you up. And who knows, maybe on my next subsequent watch throughs, I decide that I like the earlier seasons better.
It's the beauty of rewatching it. You can kind of change your mind as you go. I experienced some of that with this watch with everybody.
I did too.
Me too.
I definitely appreciated the later seasons more, I suppose, watching with John, who was such a big fan of all the pain. It made you kind of stop and go, okay, maybe he has a little bit of a point.
Yeah, like a different perspective kind of makes you see it a little differently. It really changed my view of the revival, I'll be honest, and part of that is I didn't have as many expectations, but hearing what everybody else liked about it made me look at it a little differently than what I initially did. And I really like that about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say it again. I really, I think that Fall is about as good as some of the best episodes of the original series. I think Fall is just a towering episode. It doesn't surpass Festival of Living Art for me, but it's pretty high up there, and it's emotionally just amazing.
I also love how they ended Emily's story arc at Fall. Just kind of like she became her own woman, complete.
Yeah, totally.
I really like that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris.
I'm sorry.
Nick Offerman!
I was going to say I like the revival, but the first 4 seasons are probably my favorite because there's still that tension between Luke and Lorelai.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. The tension between Luke and Lorelai sort of turns into less of a dynamic, like, are they going to get together tension, and it becomes a little bit more of like a sad, will these two ever find common ground again? Which I also think is satisfying, but I get how the sort of the relationship tension bubbling up over the course of these first few seasons is a lot of fun.
The build-up in real time, like back in like 2000 to 2004 or 3, whenever it was like palpable. It was palpable. Like, it was crazy. Yeah. Like the will they won't.
Of course.
It's also good to see you came back with your head intact, John, and not like cut off at the FanFest. Saw a lot of t-shirts with your head on it and pictures. Did you have to explain those t-shirts to a lot of people?
Which t-shirts?
The beheaded t-shirts.
No,
I
most
thought
people who see that beheaded T-shirt, the T-shirt of my head on a platter and the character of Mia holding it, um, I don't think that you really have to explain it. It's just so weird and surreal that it's kind of amazing in its own.
I had
yeah.
Its own.
forgotten that Jackson wants to call the baby Colgate if it's a girl.
Like the toothpaste. Like, who came up with that in the writer's room?
He's
Look
so
how
proud to
young
have a
they
girl.
look.
Oh, Kirk.
They all look like babies.
Why do we keep seeing Babette without Maury? Where is Maury? Is he okay?
So this is what Sean was talking about when he was saying there was that period where he was like, "Why didn't they just tell me to cut my hair?"
Because
We'll
it's
call
a
them
little long and shaggy.
the mullet ears.
In my experience, you can't talk someone out of a mullet. If they've decided to have a mullet, they're very committed.
Has the Fan Fest ever kind of recreated this in their own way? This festival
I
where
mean, that would be amazing. I just think that it's very difficult. You need like pros to be able to do it right, I think. But I don't know. I mean, there are some folks at Gilmore Girls Fan Fest that are just brilliant with their costumes.
Yeah, I
Millie and
saw some of
Carlos
the
are incredible.
costumes. They were great.
It is an actual festival somewhere, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I believe that they're all over the country. They're a festival of living pictures everywhere.
Steph just sent me a message saying they did something like it the first year.
Uh,
She says they had kids do it the first year. So kind of like a miniature version, maybe.
Oh, that sounds adorable.
That sounds really cute.
I do
But
think
that
my
was just
first year going to the festival, there were a few costumes that were mimicking the festival. Like I think someone did the Renoir that Lorelai had replicated my first year going to the fan festival.
so funny. There are like little things that I did not see the first time. I didn't catch that little sexy beard moment, and well, specifically didn't catch Taylor's reaction to it, where he kind of like strokes his beard and smiles a little bit.
He's very proud of it.
It's a callback because when Miss Patty says something earlier in the meeting and then it upsets Taylor, she says, "Your beard is so sexy."
Right.
And so Lorelai calls back to that by saying, "Your sexy beard," and then he strokes it.
Yeah, the stroking was the thing that I was kind of like, I didn't catch that the first time. That's kind
Yeah, definitely.
I think as you rewatch this, John, you're going to find a lot of little things you didn't notice the first time around because there's just so much going on, and all of us were
Yeah,
talking about what we liked and didn't like.
I've been watching it for years and years, and I still notice things I never noticed before.
Same.
So remind me, where is the Lorelai-Luke relationship at this point?
Entirely
He's
platonic.
still, yeah, he's still
Entirely
trying to
100%
divorce.
platonic?
Nothing romantic has happened. He's going through his divorce with Nicole.
But has there been a moment where
No.
where he's given a sense that he likes Lorelai yet?
No.
Not
But
too
earlier
I mean, I
Lorelai.
think
seasons,
the whole show is him liking Lorelai and not
Right.
realizing it. But
Right.
yeah, at this point, is she? I don't want to spoil anything.
isn't
Is
she
Lorelai dating
with?
somebody at this point?
I think she may
Isn't
be
she with
with Digger
Cooper?
at this point.
I thought so.
John's watched the whole thing at this point, so anything we say is not a spoiler.
Yeah, I think
My
We
brother
assume
might
that if you're watching
finally
Festival of Living Art, you know everything up to Festival of Living Art. That's what I'm mostly
I don't
saying.
want to spoil.
Don't talk about things to come, but you could certainly talk about things that have happened.
This is like mid season 4, so she's like in that, like she's in that kind of time.
I think they alluded to some well, they did when he was going on the cruise with Nicole in previous episodes, and she told him don't get married. And I feel like he, you could see like a mutual feel, like there was
That
something,
was a dream,
some
though.
butterflies there.
That was unfortunately a dream, though.
But oh yeah, you're right. Actually,
It's unfortunate. I know.
I
We
always
all want
forget
it to
that
be
that was a
real.
dream. I do always forget that, and it's so believable. And then they cut to her
I know.
that it was just a dream. You're
I
right.
was actually going to
He
bring
wakes
that
up
up
on
as
the
well.
couch.
Yeah.
That's what I love about listening to Scott Patterson's podcast, though, because he talks a lot about where Luke kind of is with his feelings for Lorelai, but they haven't gotten to season 4.
I want to know where Shakey's is and why nobody has ever spoken about it before or after Kirk's comment.
Shakey's is a restaurant in my old neighborhood. Isn't
Mine
Shakey's
too.
real? Yeah, Shakey's a
It
real.
was a
Yes,
real
it is.
like
Yes.
spaghetti pizza joint. It was a
Yeah,
spaghetti pizza joint.
it was a
Yeah.
spaghetti pizza joint. Is that the Shakey's they're talking about?
I always assumed it was because we used to have one
Yeah, I
around here
think
too
so.
when I was.
Okay, all right. So it's definitely a reference to something real. Got it.
Don't they get burgers at Shakey's, or am I crazy?
No, I think that wouldn't that be would that be
Unless
Shake
it's a
Shack?
different.
I think
I thought they had mentioned
Shakey's is
burgers.
pizza.
That's why I wasn't sure.
Shakey's is pizza and pasta.
But they might have said burgers
Oh,
to avoid like copyright
copyright
nonsense and
infringement.
stuff.
I do love that Joe the pizza guy makes an appearance, because when they do town events, sometimes it's funny to see people pop up when you haven't seen them in a while.
Dream Fresh. Is that a
I think that
fake
Joe the
laundry
pizza guy
brand?
looks so much like Matt Stone that I thought it was Matt Stone when I first saw that character.
He does look a
Wait,
lot
which
like
character?
Joe the pizza guy.
So
You
yes,
thought it was who?
Matt Stone.
Matt
Writer of
Stone.
South Park.
Yeah, the South Park guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
So yes, this is season 4, like when she's doing the end, so she has no money. So yeah, it's when she's with Digger.
Oh, she's
Are we
already
close
at
to when
Yale.
she needs a
She's all,
haircut? Because I feel like we're close to when she needs a haircut.
Yeah, it's in like the next episode.
but
I got him.
this is Yale. She's at Yale already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Season
Because this
4
is the
is.
this is the laundry room where she has that awkward conversation where she tries to kind of ask that guy out.
I just watched that episode today. That's early on in the season.
Yeah.
Somebody messaged me and said that Lorelai is not with Digger yet. This is too early in the season for him. So Lorelai must be single at this point. Hey, look who's on screen.
Brian.
It drives me nuts how poorly Rory was folding those towels.
I'm gonna
This is
plot.
Gil's first episode. Yay!
What does that mean? If he's half as good as his tape, I'm gonna plots. What is that? Plots.
I think it's like a Yiddish term, like a Jewish Yiddish term. I'm not sure.
Like to be excited or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've heard other Jewish characters use that in different shows. So yeah, that's a term of like excitement
Yeah,
or
it's
like being
Yiddish.
proud.
It is Yiddish.
Means to fall down from extreme excitement.
Thank you.
I love Kirk Jesus.
Now the long hair makes sense.
I love Troubadour Judas.
Yeah, I mean the dynamic between Judas and between Kirk and Troubadour is amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
Does the
I
troubadour ever
never
have a name?
noticed.
I don't think so.
It's part of the Troubadour code. You're not supposed to give out your name.
I never noticed Kirk's hair until Sean Gunn mentioned it, and now I can't unnotice.
I never noticed it until you guys mentioned it during this watch.
What? Notice what?
His hair
How
being like
how
longer, like almost
Kirk
mullet.
Oh
needs
yeah.
a haircut. It never, like, I never realized it until he mentioned it. Now I can't unrealize.
So, John, when you first met Sebastian Bach to do these scenes, was it kind of surreal or weird for you at all? Or
Yeah,
were you
kind
not a
of.
fan of
I mean,
his band?
I've told this story before, but like, when I was in high school, I had a crush on a girl who was really into Sebastian Bach, and so I kind of didn't like him.
Until you met him, right?
I told him that story too. He's wonderful. He's hilarious. He's like a he's he's like Peter Pan. He's like a kid forever.
So, John, how does this work sound-wise? Because I know that when there's like dancing going on TV shows, there's no actual sound. How does that work with when you guys are playing?
All of this is all live music. They wanted it to sound like a real like garage band. So anytime you hear the band playing, it is music being played on set by real musicians. Now, I say real musicians, I don't say by us because not all of us are real musicians. So for me, Todd is. So anything that Todd was playing was Todd. Me and Sebastian, believe it or not, Sebastian doesn't play the guitar. So he and I, we weren't actually playing. We learned the fingering on the guitar, and so all of the fingering is correct. But
Dirty.
our dirty. But our guitars aren't plugged in. And right off camera, literally, if they were to turn the camera a little bit, you'd see an actual real guy playing for me and playing for Sebastian, so that the actual on set mics could pick up something that sounded authentically like an on set bunch of people playing.
That's
And Keiko really
interesting.
learned all those drum beats, huh?
Oh, right. And Keiko's really playing. Keiko's really playing. Todd's really playing. I'm not playing. Sebastian's not playing. But the two people offset are playing for us. And one of those, the one who was playing for mostly for Sebastian, but also played for me as well, a lot of it was the real Dave Rogalski, the
Oh,
husband of Helen Pye, one of the producers. Helen
that
Pye.
is so sweet.
Yeah, Helen Pye, of course, her name is an anagram for Hep Alien, and the Lane character is actually inspired by Helen. And her husband, Dave Rogalski, inspired the character of Dave Rogalski.
So what you're
And
telling me is that
he's a real
Dave never
musician.
left
And
the band.
what's up?
Dave never left the band.
Right, exactly. I mean, it also tells you that in their original plan, the plan was that Dave Rogalski would remain on the show
Oh,
for the rest of the show.
heartbreak.
I remember watching the show when I was in high school, whenever Dave was still on the show, and I really loved his character. And then he was written off the show, and I was really sad for a while.
He went to California.
Yep.
I
I
really
know we
like the
talked.
character Dave, but I'm glad we got Gil in the end. I love him.
Bruce, the actress who plays Bruce is also a good friend of mine. That's Rusty Schwimmer. She's a brilliant actress. You've seen her in a bunch of stuff. She's a really just just a great character actress. The first thing where she really kind of got notoriety was the film The Perfect Storm. She played one of the women who, she didn't play a wife. She played, I think, a girlfriend of one of the characters that went off in the boat. And I think it's where she got her kind of her bigger fame. But she's been in a ton of stuff.
I know we talked about this the first time we watched this episode, but this is probably my least favorite Lorelai tiny arc of like how she feels about this home birth. It really bugs me like how unsupportive she is.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. This is not really like, for me, this is not really like my favorite part of Lorelai. Like Lorelai doesn't, I don't start to really love Lorelai until later seasons. And I think that might be part of why I like the later seasons more. My earlier seasons, there's just a lot of selfishness, and I mean, even though I get it, she's an amazing mother and she's done so much for her daughter. There's just something about her snark and everything being needing to be her way that just kind of bugged me a bit. And as the story starts getting harder for her and she starts to become more vulnerable, then I start to really fall in love with her character. By the end of the series, I'd say of the three Gilmore Girls, she was probably my favorite, even if like I probably related to the Rory character by the end a little bit more.
I think
To
she had
touch
her
on
own
that,
coming of age in the later seasons, which is what makes her more likable, maybe, as
Totally.
the series goes
Yes.
on.
Yeah.
that's what I was just gonna say. That to touch upon what you said, John, we saw her grow up on screen, like her character grow up on screen along with her daughter. So that sort of selfishness at the beginning of the seasons, like we see her grow out of that.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
very sad,
also,
and it's very satisfying. I mean, it's a really great like story arc, and we talked a little bit about this when we were at FanFest about how it's such an interesting show that it is a coming of age story for older characters. Like usually coming of age stories are sort of focused on children, and the idea that like it would be a coming of age story for an adult is really interesting.
yeah, and I love the revival,
It's
but
my
that's
favorite
what
part.
took
It's my
me.
favorite part. This is my favorite part in the episode. It is.
With his 5
I
minutes
love
of
his hair in the
preparation.
wind. His
You would
I
windblown
love
fold.
hair
this scene
is
too.
the best. Kirk's windblown hair is beautiful.
Is
The
this the speech?
wind. I'm
Patty's line is how they got that Snickers
That's what I was
campaign.
just about to say. Do you think that the Snickers advertisements were inspired by this?
I didn't even hear that line. She said, "Have a Snickers" or something.
Have a candy bar.
Yeah, she said
Here,
have a
that's your blood sugar,
Snickers.
sweetie.
Oh,
Have a candy bar. That would have been hilarious.
that would have
That's
been really good.
if that's the case.
But
that
any
speech that Kirk just gave. For those of you who weren't here the other day when Sean was with us, um, I'll relay. I also mentioned this when I was at FanFest. He was given that 10 minutes before he had to perform it,
I still
which is
can't
a
believe
very,
that.
yeah, which is very unheard of because usually the scripts are written beforehand. They're really locked in. We all, it's like we can't deviate from them at all. So for a script to be sort of rewritten on set or to added is very rare. And oh god, I love it. And so he, sorry, I love this. yeah, so he was given that like 10 minutes before. He had to memorize it. He had to like get awesome with it. And I mean, you know, he's a good actor.
My
Can we
brother
get
might
some
be joining
Babette
me
Gill
to.
fan fiction, please?
Oh, that would be fun. I would listen. I would read Gil fan fiction in a heartbeat. Love
I
it.
mean, like what he's doing with the guitar is so silly.
Your face,
I was
John, is hilarious.
I was just gonna say your face cracks me up in this scene every single time. Utter disgust.
Do you have
Yep,
any
it's great.
recollection of or direction of how you were supposed to be reacting to his character? Or do you just not
I
remember
think
any
I
of that?
just started doing early in the series. I just started doing these kind of weird little like faces, like where my like eyebrows were kind of perked up and stuff, and they found it funny. So I just started making that a part of the character.
You are very much a face actor in this show.
Very true.
Yeah, I feel like I could kind of sense that they wanted me to do more of that. Nobody specifically told me.
That's cool. My brother might be coming in to join me to watch this episode, and he's currently watching the show with me for the first time. And we're only going to be starting episode 413 after we finish this episode watch. So I don't want to spoil him on anything because he has not seen the show before. So I'm just warning everybody so that in case he comes in, I'll let you guys know if he comes and sits with me. But in case he comes in, I just don't want to spoil him. So I'm letting you guys know now.
Thank you, Emma.
Of course.
This is one of my favorite Suki moments.
I relate to this so much.
Yeah, I was about to say
Same.
it's very relatable.
I still can't believe that I was totally unspoiled by Melissa being in the revival. I truly, truly thought that she was never able to. Were never able to get her. Oh shoot! I just spoiled people.
Oh
Sorry.
my god.
We worked very hard not to spoil you on that, John, whenever that came up when we were in season 7 and talking about the revival, because there were a lot of us that kept just like hearing you say things, and it was so hard not to just say, "What, really, you didn't
If
know?"
you
We
can,
really
John.
did. We tried so hard, and we were talking in the Remarkist chatters about it, and like laughing that you thought that she wasn't there, and it was hilarious. But my brother isn't in
Lorelai's
the room
right
yet,
now.
so he didn't get spoiled.
Lorelai's hair is right now in between. It's in between where I like my favorite Lorelai hair and my least favorite Lorelai hair.
It's because she needs a haircut.
If you can,
And a
John,
deep condition.
you should listen back to the audio of, if anyone can remember which episode it was, where you said, "Oh, it's such a shame Melissa isn't in the revival," because you can probably hear a lot of silence and then a lot of people going, "Oh yeah, that really is a shame, isn't it?"
There were a lot of back channel chats saying, "Don't say anything. Be quiet." And everybody was like, "We know."
I accidentally typed it in the Discord and then soon had a couple of DMs from people saying, "Delete it."
Pure panic that happened in Discord.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, honey. John probably wouldn't have seen it anyway, but we were just being paranoid.
Mementos.
She said memento.
Mementos.
I had never caught that before.
I didn't catch that either. Did we have mementos yet? Maybe we didn't even
I
have them
don't
yet.
know. Maybe it's subliminal, John.
That bubblicious gum necklace is gross.
Ugh. That does remind me, though, that somebody gave me some saltwater taffy at
Oh.
Gilmore Girls Fan Fest. Let me see if I can find that.
I'm near Atlantic City, so if you ever need saltwater taffy, let me know.
It was somebody. It was somebody from New Jersey. It was somebody from the shore. And I was like, oh,
Perfect.
yes, I would love it.
So something I find very interesting, it's only a very tiny detail, but Lorelai, this is a box from the night Rory was born, right? And she says that jumper is the first one she had to make for Rory out of her own jumper. She had cut it up and whatnot because it was post-Gilmore economy. But we know that they didn't leave the Gilmore house until Rory was about 1.
Yeah.
So I always find that interesting.
I
Very
just want to
good point.
mention that I got a couple back channel messages saying that there was a memento for this episode. Was this the 3-day one?
No,
So we did have
was
the
it?
tokens at the time.
No, the I'm a Believer was the 3-day one. That wasn't
That's right.
this
That was the nuptials.
Don't do
But
that.
we did
This
Don't
have
was
them.
mention it.
this was like Hep vocals. I think this was Hep. This would have been Hep vocals because Hep Keys was the first. That was in the first Hep Alien season. This would have been the second Hep Alien season. So this was Hep vocals. And the password was Salisbury State or Salisbury.
We just weren't
That's
as
right,
clued into the
because
word
the
yet.
question or the clue was where was Gil from?
I wish we got to see
then there
some of
were
these
no
other.
Back then there were no clues.
I,
Back then it was just sort of like you got to figure out the password, and people just sort of figured it must be something from the episode.
No, I think you asked us where the sandwich shop was or something.
Yeah,
Maybe that was something else.
there was something that led us to where Gil.
Not before people had already guessed it. There might have been people who were like, "Can you please help us here?" But there were people who got it without it.
Those were the
I wish we
days.
could see. Sorry, I wish we could see some of the art, like the art that is in the dressing room. I wish we could see some of the ones that are featured, like that gold lady, like in action. I kind of wish that the actual festival had gone on.
We should find out what towns host these and do a Remarkist field trip.
Mary just sent me a message that said there are recordings that we can use to confirm these things. We'll have
She's
to go
right.
back and look.
Mary.
Mandy, I love your idea. That would be fun.
The Remarkist field trip.
Yes.
Seeing Kirk like this with the different hair makes me wonder why he had the other one.
Amanda, I
Very,
wonder if
very
they didn't
solid
do
point.
more. I was gonna say, I wonder if they didn't do more of the showing us more pictures because it just would have been a lot more set prep that they didn't have time for at the time that they were doing.
That's
Why
probably
did
true, but
why did they call the
I don't know if
episode?
there's.
Why did they call the episode Festival of Living Art when they keep referring to it as the Festival of Living Pictures?
I've always wondered the same thing.
I wonder if it's like a language translation thing because it's in so many countries. Maybe art is easier to translate than pictures. That's my only like theory.
Just love that reaction from Kirk. I like to think that we saw Kirk in a wig earlier in the episode because he bought it himself to feel like Jesus.
It was probably like character acting, like he was trying to get into character.
Did you find your taffy, John?
If you saw what is going on right now with me and this taffy,
Would we say dirty?
to answer your question, yes, I did find it. It is a mess. I mean, look at this. This is amazing.
Rory looks incredible. I always
This
think she
always
looks
is so
adorable.
fascinating to me that they're actually standing there live, like that's them, like standing there on stage, and like it's actually them. Because it looks so much like the painting. It's like, is that really them? But it actually is them, and it's crazy.
I wonder how many takes it took to not blink or flinch or anything.
Honestly, I don't know, but probably a few. But I remember people saying that Amy didn't like to do that many takes. Am I correct on that, John? I don't remember who said that, but I remember somebody saying that like she didn't like that many takes, or maybe it's the opposite. I don't remember.
No.
But
There were a lot. Typically, Amy did a lot of takes.
then it
At
was the
least that was my
opposite. Okay,
experience.
my bad.
That was my experience. Whenever I was directing, whenever if there was one episode I remember where, oh no, two episodes where Amy directed me, and we had a lot of takes.
I
And I
remember
think what
people
you're
saying
thinking
she
of,
didn't like improv.
Emma, I think
Oh
what you
yeah,
were
no.
thinking of is the season 7 where they were talking about in season 7 there weren't a lot of takes.
Oh yeah, probably. Yep. Okay, that's what it was. Thank you.
This is amazing.
The crowd is so small for how awesome a festival it is.
I was thinking the same thing. I feel like even though it's a small town, they should have had more chairs if it was like something that the whole area would.
I'm a little jealous of your saltwater taffy there, John. I love that stuff.
Oh,
ASMR.
sweet. Sorry about that. Oh, I'll say that Sebastian really worked hard on this scene. He was really, in particular, really wanted to get this scene right. It was his first sort of serious.
I
Yeah,
love
he
the way
worked.
he played this
He worked very hard
character.
on it. I remember, off like on set. He
Are any of these facts about like him and his actual
Yeah,
band?
it's so clear that it's like it's inspired by Skid Row.
Okay, I was always curious, but I just wasn't sure. It seemed very authentic when he was.
Yeah, I mean his fallout with band members of Skid Row, I believe, has a lot of parallels to this. What I don't know is whether they asked him about it, whether they asked him whether they could include that kind of stuff, how he would feel about it. That I don't know, but I do know from him about what happened with Skid Row. Just in bits of conversation, and it's very similar to what he talks about.
Didn't you also say
That's really
before
fascinating.
that he would like a lot of his costuming was he would come in a lot of it was like his own style, his own dress
That
and
I
things like
that I
that.
don't know, but that makes a lot of sense. Like I think that would be something Valerie would know.
I think maybe Valerie said that sometimes some of the outfits were just his own, like he would, and Lauren Graham did that sometimes too. I thought she said that sometimes they wore their own things
Yeah.
that they liked.
Oh right, this.
Remember
I
when
hope
you
I
really
don't.
liked her
Oh
character?
right. So we haven't really seen her. If I remember correctly, we haven't seen her much this season. The last we really saw of her was when they were going off on their cruise at the end of last season, and now we've just been kind of hearing about lawyers and stuff. This is where she kind of wants to get back together, right? Or something like that.
Yes, and
spoilers.
also like I don't mind Nicole, but I also think that Rachel was an amazing character that should have gotten more screen time, even if she had like somehow moved to town and met somebody else. Like I just
Rachel was a very
I
cool character.
I don't I don't
I don't love Rachel. I'll just say it.
I don't really love Rachel, and I don't really dislike Nicole that much.
I wasn't
I don't
here.
dislike Nicole, but I don't like love her. I'm neutral on her. But Rachel was just such a cool character that I wish she had more time.
That's
I
actually
was okay with Rachel because she was there before Lorelai, but Nicole sort of doesn't make sense to me because clearly Luke all this time has just been in love with Lorelai.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't think that Nicole is good for Luke. I just don't have this visceral negative reaction towards Nicole. I just sort of feel like, wrong place, wrong time, not really the right person, but doesn't seem like a bad person, just seems like just not right for him.
I dislike
Um,
her because she prolongs the inevitable.
yeah, I know. I get that.
Yeah.
That's what I get a sense is that it's more we don't like her because she gets in the way of what we do like. This is amazing. I'm sorry, but this statue is amazing.
this is
Stop
very
it.
cool.
I mean, look at that.
That's a person.
Oh my gosh, that's Mike. I mean, that's amazing.
Mike talked to us about that like last year at the festival, and he described how cold
Yep.
it was.
And that
Yes.
he had burned his body because he used Nair to get like the hair off his body, and he had
Yes.
gotten like second-degree burns or something from the Nair on
Oof.
different parts of his body. So there was like
Yeah, it was
no
really
part of his
intense.
body that wasn't like burned, and he had to get painted, and it was horrible. I felt so bad.
And then
He
it
used
was
to tell that
freezing
story.
cold.
Yeah, and it was freezing.
Also, I don't understand entirely why within the same episode Lorelai says she's so excited to wear the pretty dress, but then she doesn't wear a dress. So I don't know, it's just a
Yeah.
bit like
Yeah,
within the
that
same
always
episode.
confused me. Yeah, too.
Like I get when
It's
they
so
kind of have
weird that she's wearing
continued.
jeans.
I get that it's like it's inevitable that it'll happen, that there'll be inconsistencies multiple episodes apart or seasons apart, but like within the same episode.
Weeble wobbles.
This was in our trivia the other day. This thing.
I never get why people
Oh
say that.
yeah.
I don't know either. I'm sure it's from something originally, but I think it's so strange.
And
That's the
Louise
second
has
time
the
in
same
this
line.
show. Madeline and Louise said it to each other once back in, I want to say, season 2, when they were jousting and they didn't want to put the helmets on. She said, "Close your eyes and think of England, sweetie."
Yeah, we did like a trivia thing the other day, and we were debating, okay, are we going to mark this down as, I don't know if it was Madeline or I thought it was Louise. We
Yeah,
were trying to figure out
it
if it was
was
a
the
Rory quote or a
bingo
Louise
that yeah, it
quote.
was the bingo that Nikki had done
Ah,
with the quotes. Yeah. It was
I mean, come on.
I just love that the pager is like, obviously of the time, but like it's still so funny as like a timeless joke.
I mean, that's just such good writing. I just love it. Because you completely forget about that pager.
I love how it shows them running like from behind the curtain to get to Suki's house at school.
Yeah. I think that this is the reason why she's in jeans somehow. It bothers me earlier when it's like, I'm going to be in a painting in jeans, but then you don't see the jeans, but then she runs away and she's in jeans instead of a giant dress. It makes more sense.
So
Visually, you can see.
I looked up the phrase "close your eyes and think of England," and you guys want to really know where it comes from originally?
oh
Yes,
boy,
please.
tell us.
Wait, I'll tell you after the dinner scene.
After the witch?
After the scene.
That was good.
It's over,
Oh, wait,
Chris.
that's the end of the show. Mine went to the next episode. Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
so
mine
close
was
your
Chris
in the
is
eyes
just
and
middle.
think of
carrying on.
England. Close your eyes
um,
and think of England is when what women are are told to think of when they have husbands who want to have sex with them and they're not interested. Basically, it depends on which
Oh.
one you're looking at, but supposedly Queen Victoria was asked by one of her newly married daughters about the possible carnal activities in the marriage bed, and that was her response. And then there's another
Like,
one
do
that
it for
says the
your
same
country.
thing. Yeah, so
Interesting.
it's just there's like references to that. It's basically women who just unwanted stuff
Lovely.
in the bedroom.
I thought that was something close to what the meaning was, but then it doesn't make sense for Rory to say it to Lorelai in that moment. And like, I guess it sounds more sassy and it makes more sense from like Louise saying it. But like Rory saying it to her mom is just, it's weird.
All right, we're gonna actually we're gonna switch some gears here. We're gonna bring some other folks up on to the couch with us so that we can chat about what we just watched.
Do you want to
If
make
you are
it?
new, if you're new to Remarkist, I encourage you, and if you just watched the episode with us, I encourage you to come on up and join us for some lively discussion. We'll be talking about this for the next 45 minutes or so. And that couch is open now.
I'm gonna hop off so I can watch episodes with my brother. He just walked into my room, so I'm gonna
Bye,
hop
Nice.
off
Emma.
and enjoy the discussion, guys. I will talk
Bye,
to you
Bye,
guys
Emma.
later.
Emma.
Love you all.
Bye,
Thank you
Emma.
for joining us.
Bye bye.
That was my brother. He said hi,
Bye,
bye,
brother.
everybody.
Bye, brother.
Bye, group.
Bye, guys.
All right. I'm
Bye.
gonna make Charlie and Beth moderators, and then if you could just watch out for the hand raising and bring some folks up here on to the couch with us. Interesting. Interesting to watch that a second time. I totally saw things that I had missed the first time. I wonder why. Maybe we were talking.
You hadn't rewatched it yet?
I had what this? No, I hadn't rewatched it.
Oh,
Possibly not. No. Yeah, it's interesting how I have to admit there is
Hello,
a.
everyone.
Hi, Desmond.
Hi, Desmond. Did you
hi,
watch
Desmond.
Hi.
the episode with us? I guess not.
Yes, hello.
Hey, Desmond, did you watch the episode we just watched with us?
Can you hear very well?
Um,
Could you please come again?
did you watch the episode that we were just watching?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I came in not quite long ago, so that was what.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, we're chatting about an episode of Gilmore Girls that we all watched. So you may find yourself a little lost in that discussion.
Okay, I'll just stay around. I'll just be around.
Hi, Sherry.
So,
Hey,
John, did you
Hi,
everybody.
find Sean's
Sherry.
performance as great this time around as you did the first time around? The same
Oh,
impact that you had?
oh yeah, oh yeah, for sure. And the first time around, I didn't know about the fact that he had gotten that script like 10 minutes before, because we found that out
Yeah,
from
that's a
him
cool
after we'd already
fact.
watched the episode. And so now to watch it with that particular piece of information was even more awesome. But just the whole thing was just great. Just the his hair like just subtly blowing in the wind. I mean, I really don't know if that was actual real wind that was happening, or if they had like a subtle like fan right off camera that was blowing his hair. I really don't know, but
I
um,
would like to think that he's so magical when he began to speak, the wind just started blowing gently through his hair. That's how I would like to think of
Of course, Magic Mandy thinks that way. I love it.
it.
yeah, I mean it was cool. But what I was going to say is that like I have to admit, there is something about returning to this earlier season where things are not quite as dark and sort of scary, I guess, for the characters, where there isn't this like heartbreak that you're dealing with, or fear of the world swallowing you up, and difficulty with career and all that stuff that I actually found to be really compelling storytelling, which is why I really love those seasons, and why I think I liked the revival a lot more than others. But I have to admit, returning now to a time where things weren't quite so intense for these characters, it was actually kind of comforting. There was something that about it that felt like relaxing. And that's something else I think to consider when we talk about like why some folks don't love the revival enough, right? Like, if not only did we talk about the idea that 10 years passes for fans, and throughout those 10 years the fans are kind of like thinking about what they want the revival to be, or what they expect it to be, or where they imagine Rory and Lorelai and Luke to be, only to get something that sort of subverts their expectations of what that should be. But we should also consider the fact that over that 10 years fans were rewatching the series over and over and over and over and over again. And if
Yep.
we're to believe that that the earlier seasons are actually a little bit more of a comfort place, a place that fans are returning to more often than the later seasons, well, then that makes complete sense, because the revival feels more like the later seasons. It's actually got a lot of, sort of dark stuff in there, a lot of like regret and feelings of being lost, and all these things that I actually really found compelling about the later seasons of Gilmore Girls, which then of course made sense that I would really enjoy them during the revival. But had I spent a decade sort of living in the comfortable aspects of Stars Hollow, I might have had an equally negative reaction as many fans.
Do you sometimes feel like
Um,
season 4 is a
sorry.
transition season, though? For me, it feels like a transition season because Rory is kind of like, she's single for the most of season 4. Lorelai is kind of in between things, and from the way it starts to the way it ends, I kind of feel like it's like a middle of the road kind of thing. I don't know.
Well, season 4 is the season where she gets together with Dean while he's with Lindsay.
At the very, very end,
Well,
sort of.
well, no, I mean throughout, like, it starts to build. I mean, like, like, she's already like seeing him. He's already not like, he's already starting to not really be super into his marriage. There's like, the stuff with like Lindsay, like making him that little dinner
Sean
and being
Gunn
super.
has joined us.
Sean?
Sean Gunn.
What?
Whoop, whoop.
Dude, come up.
Hey, Sean. Hey, Cat Kurt.
Welcome in.
Hey, Sean.
How's the
Hi,
galaxy?
Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Hey.
Hello, everybody.
We
Hello.
were just
Hi,
Hello.
talking
Sean.
about
We
you.
were just
Dude,
talking about you.
we
Oh,
just watched
really?
your mullet.
We
The
always
Festival of
talk
Living
about you.
Arts. We watched your speech you got 10 minutes before you gave it and all that good stuff.
Oh, that's great. I'm sorry I missed watching the show. I just got out of work.
You were guarding the galaxy. It's okay.
I was indeed.
So
Harvest.
we were actually just chatting about, so this is the first time that I'm watching this episode again, even though it's my favorite episode of the series. And I was just saying that I have to admit, even though during the original run of the series I was really into the drama and the kind of darker aspects of the later seasons. I kind of have to admit that like there's something comforting about going back to these earlier times when things weren't so intense, and people weren't so worried about the world swallowing them up, and Lorelai and Luke weren't, heartbroken and whatnot. So then I was thinking, well, there's a lot of we were talking about how there are a lot of folks who don't really love the revival, a lot of fans who don't really love the revival, and I was thinking that, like, well, if a lot of fans for 10 years had been rewatching the series, and most fans enjoy sort of rewatching the earlier seasons because those earlier seasons are kind of a comfort place, then it would make sense the revival would be a little bit of a turnoff, because the revival is a lot more of that same kind of dark stuff that we get in the later seasons of Gilmore Girls. It's like Rory completely, like, not knowing what's going on with her life, and Luke and Lorelai not totally together yet. And I like that stuff. So I actually like the revival because of it. But coming back to this episode, I kind of was like, I get it. There's something kind of comforting about going back to this time when everything was just kind of okay.
When things are kind of simpler.
Yeah.
Do you notice from the the people listening, and from the people that are joining you today, do you notice a pattern? Do fans tend to like the mellower stuff or the more dramatic stuff?
Oh, without a question of a doubt, it's the mellower stuff. Am I wrong about that, everyone? I mean, I think
I
that
would say about
No.
I
70-30.
felt like I was in the minority, loving season 6 and thinking that season 7 was totally a legit, like, really strong season, in my opinion. I definitely, the idea that, like, season 6 was like a really great season, I felt like I was in the minority there.
Mm.
I think you
I
were.
think. Sorry.
I think you might have changed some people's minds on some things, but I think coming into this, a lot of the Gilmore Girl core fandom really did like the earlier seasons best. Because when we would ask people what their favorite seasons were, very few would say 6 or 7. Most would say 1, 2, 5, 3, things like that. So
Renee, what's your favorite season?
I think it's really hard to pick, but definitely the earlier seasons because, like you said, they're very comforting and things aren't too dramatic, high stakey, I guess. But I did love the revival because it was just nice to return to that small town and to see my favorite characters again. The only thing I didn't like about the revival really was the fact that Luke and Lorelai's relationship had sort of stood still for all those years. But yeah, I definitely love the earlier seasons better than the later ones.
I kind of agree. I love the early seasons, and lately, like, I've been thinking about season 4, and I feel like season 4 might be one of my favorite seasons because I like single Rory and I like mostly single Lorelai, and I feel like they're finally living apart and they get to discover themselves for the first time without having to, like, kind of change themselves with whatever partner they're with. And I do love the small town stuff where the episodes where you get the whole town together. For me, Bracebridge Dinner is my favorite. But this one is definitely up there. And I also believe, and I'm not going to spoil anything, I'm just going to say the word boat. I feel like boat is jumping the shark. And so when I rewatch for comfort, I rewatch up until the boat and then I stop.
Right.
you're talking about season 5 boat, right?
Whatever
Not
the boat happens. No,
yes.
sorry. Okay, that's confusing.
Yeah, there are a few
Rory's
boats.
boat.
Rory Gilmore sex boat.
Rory's
I'll say
boat,
the
not
word
Luke.
Rory. I'll say the word Rory and the word boat, and that's where I stop the rewatch if I'm doing it for comfort reasons.
Oh, okay. The yacht where
Yes.
where Rory and Logan got it.
So
Yeah.
not
Exactly,
Luke's
but I'm
boat,
trying not to
but
spoil anything, so I'm just
Yeah.
saying Rory boat.
I don't consider that jumping the shark. I actually love that stuff. That, like, then that feeds into all of the stuff that I really love about season 6 and 7. Like, just like the world is much bigger than Rory ever had to experience before, and she's just overwhelmed by it and making mistakes and not the golden child anymore. All of that stuff is just I just relate to it.
In
a lot
summary,
more.
John is a masochist.
But we were mentioning that your hair was in full effect in this episode, dude. This was like the sweet spot of that period where you were telling us that like you wish that that they had told you like to cut your hair.
Sean, John was wondering when you were doing the speech and all of a sudden the wind started picking up and blowing the Jesus hair. Was that actually a real wind or did they actually blow something on you?
Sean, Sean, are you there?
I think he might be
It sounded like
driving.
he
I
might have been
definitely heard
driving.
indicators making a noise, so I think he's
I heard a
probably in
Oh,
the
turn
car.
signal at one point.
he might be driving. Yeah.
That sounded like the creepiest thing I've
Wait, can you
ever
hear me now?
said. I
Can you hear me
heard
now,
his turn
guys?
signals.
Yes.
Hear you
Yes, we
now.
can hear you
we can
now.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I got cut out here for a second, and then I came back in. But
So there were two things that we talked about, which was your hair
my
was in full
hair,
effect, was
right?
in full effect in this
Oh
episode.
yeah.
And then this is actually a legit question that I had. I asked it I asked to myself or out loud the first time we watched it, and this time it was really like I kind of want to know the answer. Did they have a fan blowing your hair? Because when you're doing that sermon piece, like aside from your acting, which is awesome, it just everything about that moment just feels magical. And one of them is your hair is just lightly blowing in the wind, and nobody else's hair is blowing. It's like everybody's is still, but yours is the only one that's kind of blowing. I was like, did they have like a little mini fan that was just like directed right on his face?
I hate that this makes me feel a little old, but I have no recollection whatsoever of whether they used a fan
Oh,
to blow my hair. But my guess is that they didn't.
okay.
I would guess that that would just be an extra thing that the show didn't tend to really do stuff like that too much. But I don't know for sure. But yeah, my hair was certainly was really something extraordinary at that time.
The
Cut
more
your hair, Sean Gunn.
the more I watch the show, I tend to look at the background, and I did see Miss Patty's hair blowing in the wind as well. And there was a giant tarp in the back that you could see, like the wind had picked it up. So
Okay. So then
probably no fan.
I'm gonna guess no fan then. Just fortuitous because like it was just like it was just a really, I guess, something was going on, just the stars aligned.
It
You
was
got
perfect
that.
timing. Perfect
Yeah, you
timing
got that.
for Jesus
Yeah,
Kirk's hair to blow in the wind.
yeah, you got that script like 10 minutes before. You had to learn it 10 minutes before. The wind just lightly picked up right as you were doing it. Just
It was a
everything
God
about
thing.
that. Yeah. I mean, it was
That's so
holy.
funny. Yeah.
I also love
I
how
appreciate
Kirk
that.
was eating. I also love how Kirk was eating something out of like an old looking bowl with just his hand because he has no utensils and things like that. Very method.
I did. I love that. Well, I love that little moment there where she's like, where Kirk's eating the lentils, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing it. I'm trying to be very. I don't know what the line is, but she's like, oh, they didn't have utensils back then. He's like, oh no, they had utensils.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I love that line.
And he just keeps eating with his hand for whatever reason. I love those kind of little moments. It is weird that even though there's a lot I don't remember, to me that is very close to the most memorable episode. For me, I would put it up there with like the dance marathon and the Fiddler on the Roof episode of the most memorable that I did because first of all, it was the most amount of work. And also it was just like that shoot was an absolute monster. And I'm sure you guys have talked about the fact that that's the only Emmy that the show ever won.
Yeah.
Was
Yep.
and it was a well-deserved Emmy. And my God, the hair and makeup was just pushed I think that I think that hair and makeup on that episode, they were like literally not sleeping. I mean, they were, you know, people are overworked. They say they haven't slept, but usually they sleep a few hours. I think that like Marie was just, and um, everybody I think was just kind of like they were working all night and then just starting again the next day. Um, it was a really intense situation for like for uh, for kind of everybody involved. But there's so many good scenes on that episode, and just my gosh, it's really the show at its absolute finest, I think.
Yeah, without a
Were
doubt.
the was the festival part that you guys filmed done in the middle of the night? I mean, I know it's dark out and stuff, but did that literally take you guys all night for setting up and doing those scenes?
Yeah, for the most part. I'm certain that when we shot that when we shot those scenes in particular, I feel pretty certain that it would have been sunrise that would have been, that would have been putting an end to those nights, would have been the sun coming up. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, it was nuts. Um, then Amy and Dan really wanted it to look legit. They wanted it to look like um, the Orange County festival that's a real thing. And those they work for a solid, the people who put those that real festival together, they work like all year for that to produce that festival. And we had like 1 week really, or like 10 days, maybe an extra week or so of prep because they knew it was coming. But that was an absolute monster. I do think, I don't know if is anybody else here that was on the show. I do think that was probably
Me.
the most difficult episode we ever did.
It
Only
was a big.
John was
It
there.
was a huge. That was a huge episode. I mean, I wasn't in that scene, but it was so big. And this is the reason why I remember when we were watching this, when I was watching the series for the first time, getting very excited to watch the Festival of Living Art, because although I had never seen the actual episode, I remember being on set for my scenes, which didn't have anything to do with the Festival of Living Art. They were shot completely away from it, although still on the Warner Brothers lot. And because of how big all of that art stuff was that was going on there in the town square, that stuff was like, it was like erected and being worked on throughout the entire 8 days. And so, even though I didn't have anything to do with it, I remember being on set and being like, what are they doing over there? Like, it looks amazing, and then walking over and just kind of seeing it, like, like I think I was like going home while they were shooting some of the painting stuff and being like, oh my God, that's amazing. And so I was actually just eager to see it, like to see how it ended up looking on camera, because even there in real life, it looked like it's not like it's not like they did work in post production to make the actual paintings look more like paintings. They looked like that live, right?
Oh yeah.
It was
Yeah,
pretty
it was
amazing.
Yeah. There's no, I mean, this was before they would ever. There was no touching of anything up in post. Like they didn't. That like this was before that kind of thing
any
happened.
sort of enhancement.
Um, yeah, it really is like it's funny that these days it would just be like, oh, we'll just get it as close as we can, and then we'll just we'll digitally make it work in post, like if you were doing that in 2021. But back then we never didn't have the ability to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like now they'll make a full CGI monkey for a show.
Oh my God, I know. I know that CGI monkey's amazing.
Speaking of
Yeah,
movie
it's
magic,
wild.
Sean, speaking of movie magic, it came up during the episode how your character Kirk got into character as Jesus Kirk and had a long flowing wig at one point, and then during the actual portrait of the living art, it was all of a sudden this sort of like plasticky looking. What's the story behind that?
In other words, did Kirk buy a wig to wear when
Yeah,
he
I think
crashed?
that
Yeah,
was
we
the
think
deal.
that.
I think that the implication there was that Kirk found a wig so that he could like get into character, and he wore the wig around all week, even though that's not the even though yeah, I think that's that's the supposition there that Kirk somehow got his hands on that wig so that he could really feel it.
He
Yeah,
probably stole it
I
from old
assumed
widows.
that he was just constantly in the character of Jesus all week long, and that required him to actually, because not only that,
A
the
different
clothes that you're
robe.
wearing are not the clothes that you wear on stage. They're completely different.
Right.
You're just all week living as Jesus, which
Correct.
requires you to have all of Jesus's full wardrobe as well as a real wig.
Yeah, it was so fun. Like I love, John. I think I told you this recently, but I think that I think that when it comes to just my actual work on the show, it's probably the episode that I would put into a time capsule. If I had to, I think it's probably my favorite like individual performance of my own, and I love Pompous Kirk. I think for me, in terms of playing him, he was more fun when he was. Both are funny, but like nervous Kirk isn't as fun as Pompous Kirk to me. But
Yeah.
even though they're both essential. But
I
I,
think
I
you
just
got to
really
play.
I had
I was
such a
gonna say, I think
blast
you got to
playing
play
that.
both kinds of Kirks because you got to
Oh
be
yeah,
Kirk in the beginning with introducing your girlfriend to everybody, and then you got to be Jesus Kirk. So you kind of got to do all around Kirk in that episode.
My favorite moment. I mean, the sermon is amazing, and it's probably the most memorable part of your acting in the entire episode. But my own personal little favorite is the moment when you're talking to Judas, and he's like, "I heard you guys are all going to Shakey's," and you're like, "You heard wrong, friend. We're not going to Shakey's."
Poor Grant.
Oh, Grant Phillips is the sweetest guy in the world, and we actually uh, we, we we had a blast playing those scenes with one another. Like I got to know him a little bit over the course of the show, and like it was just so much fun to do that stuff.
Do you
I feel
know
like
when they?
every time, sorry, I was going to say, I feel like every time Kirk gets a job, he takes it seriously. And so, like, when he got the job of Jesus, he did his research and he ate the way he thought he was supposed to eat and dressed the way he thought he was supposed to dress and acted the way he thought he was supposed
Well,
Oh yeah, for sure.
even when it wasn't work, he did that sort of thing. Like he rehearsed his date with Lulu. So
That's
to.
exactly
Exactly.
right. That's exactly right. Kirk never. He does not. He's not an improviser. He doesn't want any curveballs in his life in any way.
Kirk is method.
Yeah, that's sort of why Kirk's arc is one of the most satisfying arcs in terms of the entire series all the way to the revival. It's the reason why that last moment setting up the end moment there with Kirk is so awesome
Well,
because it's
let me ask it this way though: is that really an arc that he lands there at the end, or is that just a matter of like a broken clock being right twice a day, where
He
oh
Kirk,
finally
where
got
Kirk just
what
happens to
right.
get one right?
He
Right.
finally got the approval that he's been
But
searching
has he
for.
really changed? I mean, if we revisit Kirk in
But
10 or 20 years, is he really going to be any different? I'm not so sure.
probably you're probably right about
No.
that. You're probably right about that. I guess you're right from the perspective of an arc, as in the growth of a character. Certainly, Kirk has no arc, but just in terms of just the sort of arc of a character trying to get it right and does it feels like it. But you're probably right. It is just like broken clock is right twice. is right twice a day type of thing.
The
It
most
sure is satisfying though, after him getting so much wrong and him trying so hard constantly throughout the series and constantly getting things wrong, even though he's put in so much work. That does feel satisfying there at the
Oh
end when he
yeah,
gets it right.
I
Yeah,
think the
it's
most
sweet.
satisfying Kirk moment for me is when Luke wants the Twickham house and so does Kirk. And Kirk is like, look, I have money. And then he explains why. And I'm like, wow, that is satisfying. Like watching him do all those jobs.
And how did he save so much money in his short life at that point? That's what I always kind of wonder. Working the
Well,
odd
he never
job.
left his
Sometimes he
mom's
worked for
basement
free.
for starters. That helped. He's not like he's not really spending money on anything ever, right? I mean, he probably I think his mom probably cooks for him and he lives in the basement, like
He eats at
Actually,
Luke's a lot.
when
But aside
we
from that,
watched that
yeah.
episode, I actually sat and did the math of how much Kirk would have been making at minimum wage for however many years. I wonder if I still have that note in my phone. Actually, I'm gonna go look
I
How
would
because
much?
I
love
worked
to
it out.
see that. That sounds
What's
fascinating.
the amount? How much does he have? How much does
Well,
he
I would
have? Because
hope they're not
I
all
remember
minimum
when.
wage jobs. You
But
think
wait,
they're
how
all
much?
minimum wage?
Oh yeah, I think they were,
I
weren't they?
even checked the minimum wage
Maybe.
amount in the
Probably.
state at that. I found the note. So okay, let me work out my magic in
Wasn't it
like
like 150,000 or 250,000 or
I
something like
I
that?
Under
remember
250.
I remember it sounding. I remember when we watched it being kind of like, that's not that much. I
okay.
mean, like, it felt. I mean, it's sort of like, at least in terms of like the way they were making it sound, like, oh my god, Kirk is rich. I was like, but people win more than that on like game shows.
Oh yeah, he had like he had just under a quarter of a
Yeah, just
million
under
dollars
Yeah,
though.
yeah, at a
quarter of a
quarter of
million.
under a quarter of $1 million by like today's standards.
Oh
That
yeah.
wouldn't really.
I mean, I don't know, a guy for 10 years who's like spending no money on food or lodging or utilities for, you know, 15 years or something like that. Yeah, he could save that much, right?
He
I
also
have my
wasn't
Yeah.
note
he wasn't
ready.
dating that much either, so
Right.
Good
So
point,
my note
Diana.
he had just under 250,000. My note is that he was working for 11 years, meaning he was working from 1994 to 2005, based on a 40-hour work week in retail jobs at the minimum wage for each of those years in Connecticut. Before we even consider tax or the money he spends at Luke's, he should have only had $144,747.20.
But you also
I
have to
love that,
think of
Lee.
the odd jobs that Taylor would hire him to do.
Maybe he got an
Yeah,
inheritance.
no, I don't think it's that. I just think that there's more like like we don't know that it's all minimum wage. Some of those jobs he could have been making a little more. Um, and yeah, it could have been there's extra jobs that he could pick up. I think it actually I think the amount sounds kind of right. What doesn't sound right is that there's any way he would be able to make a reasonable bid on that house. But
Right. Right.
maybe I'm thinking in today's terms for
Yeah. That
for real estate.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit when the episode. I think that by today's standards, it seems a little weird. But if we went back to the like mid aughts and we went to like a small town in Connecticut, it'd probably be about right.
Yeah, you could probably buy a beautiful house for $240,000
Yeah, I mean,
at that time.
yeah, like now, I mean, it's about double that for in some places.
up here in New England it's probably triple, so you can't even touch anything that doesn't need rehabbing for under 250.
Really?
Absolutely. I live in I live in North Central Massachusetts, and what we purchased our house for 9 years ago
Yeah. Let's
are
not.
killing
We're all
us.
going to get sad if we start talking about real
I
estate,
know, it's awful.
particularly
Awful.
if
So
we start
sorry I
talking
brought
about
it up.
Los Angeles real estate. So let's move on.
I will say the
Yeah.
first time when I had started watching the show, my son, who at the time was, a little bit younger than he is, maybe about 5 years ago, said, "Mom, why does he have so many jobs?" So that was kind of funny that he picked up on that.
I love that
Yeah.
Kirk worked so many jobs. It's always made it interesting to see where he was going to pop up in an episode working the beauty shop, walking dogs. Just I really
Wall
enjoy when he
Street.
like would bombard Lorelai's inn and like just trying to learn how to run an inn. He'd just be there
Well,
doing odd jobs.
that's what made it so fun for me as an actor. Is I felt the same way when I would get the script delivered. I'd be like, I wonder what I'm doing in this. I wonder what I'm doing in there.
You were
But
working
we
for
can
50 at one point in her kitchen, so you
Yeah.
Kirk wormed his way in quite well.
believe that Kurt found his calling in the revival. He should be a party planner because, yeah, beautiful job in the
Yeah,
revival.
I
I
mean,
agree.
I kind of, yeah, I was gonna say, I kind of buy the whole idea that he that he finally got something right, but his, I mean, that is so the job that he does is so amazing and seems to stand out so far and above anything that we've seen him do throughout the series. I mean, obviously that's narratively what has to happen there because that moment's about Luke and Lorelai, but it does sort of feel like it's something bigger than just a fluke.
Well, I guess I hope so. I guess we'll
I
maybe
guess we'll
someday
see.
we'll
I guess
see.
we'll see in the spin-off, in the Kirk spin-off,
Yeah.
the Frasier-esque Kirk spin-off.
Oh, are you
Yeah.
writing that one now?
Maybe
Along
we'll see in the Christmas special. When's that going to be?
The Christmas
Sean, I
special.
have a question. I've been very curious. Where do you think Kirk's siblings are? Because he has a bunch of them, and
I know.
aside from maybe
12.
Mick, we never really meet any of them.
12. He's the youngest. Kirk is the youngest of 13.
Right. So where did they go? Are they under the floorboards, or like where are
Well,
they?
we all assume that Mick is his sibling because they screwed up the name.
Right. That's
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
like
assuming. He's your twin.
that Mick might be the next oldest, but it still doesn't add up that Miss Patty. There's still a couple of things that don't add up, but we won't worry about that today.
Yep.
The I Yeah, I don't know where those siblings are. I think they all got the heck out of Stars Hollow, though. I guess they grew up and moved on. I
I
feel like
always thought
he's a literal runt. Like I feel like he's got a bunch of brothers who are like who like played
Like football
college
players.
football, yeah, and like went on and they probably are. I don't know. Who knows? They have a construction
Wow.
company somewhere or something like that.
I always
You
thought
think
maybe
they're
Did
he
you?
all?
had
Are they
an
all
age
brothers?
gap.
I couldn't remember.
No, it's just there's definitely he says 12 brothers and sisters when he mentions it.
Oh, okay.
So
So it's just a cumulative number. I
so
thought it could
yeah.
have even been 12 brothers and 12 sisters the way you said it, but
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
I
Did you?
don't know.
This is a
Which
question
is
that I.
great.
This is a question. This is a question that I've like thought. I haven't thought about it often, but it comes to mind every once in a while whenever I hear about the the many siblings. Did you feel like there was that you could relate in any way to that, given the fact that you also have a, a large number of siblings?
Yeah, I'm the youngest of six for those of you who don't know, but uh yeah, sure. I mean, I definitely you know, you there's a youngest when you're the youngest of a large family, you do you're the lowest person in terms of learning curve. So there's a time when you're kind of making more mistakes than everyone else in your family, and as a result, this like fear of screwing things up is something that Kirk has in spades. The fear of like that the fear of messing up is a very big motivator for the way he lives his life all the time. And for me as a human, for me, Sean, like I relate to that. I understand what that's like when you're in a big family and you have a fear of messing up. So
And
yeah,
it's because there's all this like legacy that you have to sort of live up to. There's like all of these things that came before you, all of this like all of these accomplishments that now you are kind of expected to live up to. Is that kind
yeah,
of what you're saying?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think so. I mean, and even just in a more in a more general sense too. It's like when you're you know when when I'm when I'm 6 years old and my siblings are whatever 8, 10, 11, 12, which is what it was like for me growing up. It's like when you're all doing something together, you're the most likely one to screw up because you're the little one you know
Mm-hmm.
um and uh so like I just know what I sort of understand what that's like, but I'm sure I don't think it has been a guiding force in my life the way it certainly is in Kirk's, but I understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool.
That
I
makes a
always
lot of
Yes,
sense.
imagined,
sir.
I was just gonna say, I always imagined Kirk had a little bit of a gap between himself and his next sibling, and that maybe that was why we didn't see them a lot because and he was staying with his mom and she was always kind of taking care of him because he was so much
So you're
younger than
saying
the rest.
you're saying Kirk was a mistake, essentially.
Not maybe a
A happy
mistake,
I'm
but
kidding.
accident.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
just that
Kirk
maybe he
was an
was
accident. Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, that could be. I think that could be.
he was just kind of left behind by the siblings because he was still in school when they were all out of the house, kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
for a while.
It is a little weird that we never get any sort of sense of what happened to Kirk's family because we do know that he's been around Stars Hollow since he was a kid, and so like, yeah, what happened to all those siblings?
And we know he never got a
actually
Or were
If they
basket.
this?
all live in their own little towns, if each one of them the Kirk of their own little town that they live in.
Well,
That's a
that could
great
be. I'm with
theory,
you.
Sherry.
I mean, maybe the siblings. Maybe you're right that maybe there was a large gap, and you know, Kirk's dad was a some kind of ne'er do well, and when Kirk was born, his mom finally left the old man and just brought Kirk with her and moved to
Mm-hmm.
Stars Hollow. See, we're getting this whole backstory for your Kirk's
Didn't
I mean,
didn't
Hollow
he
show,
get
Gigi.
didn't he go
Yeah.
to
I will
Stars
say,
Hollow High? Like the whole thing was that they all got baskets at that basket thing and he didn't get a
Except Kirk,
basket.
yeah.
yeah, I
So
mean,
they
they're a
had to
little
have
bit,
lived in Stars
they're a little,
Hollow.
there are little bits
Oh,
of
right.
backstory
That's
here
you're
and there.
right about that. Yeah.
Uh,
See, some of the people punching holes in this theory already.
Sean,
There
I
are
will
Um,
some.
ask, did you, well, I'm sorry, I'm going off a whole different tangent, but I will ask, did you ever want to see Lulu and Kurt get married and have the wedding there, like in Town Square?
uh, I feel like from a tone perspective, that would have been a little off kilter for the show. Um, I don't really know how to answer that. I didn't think a lot about what should be happening from a story perspective. I think I've more just like kind of what is happening and try to work within that. But I think it would have been a little. You could see it being like a the background sort of plot of an episode or something. But I think I talked about this, last time I was on with you guys. That um, I don't know, something about Kirk getting married grows him up in a way that makes him a little less interesting and a little less fun. It's more like, Kirk's whole thing is that he's a man child, and so the idea that he would actually, even with Lulu, even though they're both adults, there's something that feels more like, you know, middle schoolers going steady for the first time about their relationship. So I don't know. The marriage thing kind of weirds me out a little bit with Kirk, to be honest.
I also,
I feel like
well, I was going to say that kind of also a bit related to the idea of finding out about his siblings. I feel like there are some aspects of Kirk that are kind of better left not
Oh yeah,
really not really fulfilled. Like
yeah, yeah.
like I think a good example of this, like, there was a mystery about who Mr. Kim was throughout most of the series. And I think people
Uh-huh.
asked like crazy, asked like, what's up with Mr. Kim? It doesn't really make sense. In the same way that people say, like, what's up with Kirk's brothers and his siblings? Aren't we ever going to see them? And then when we did see Mr. Kim in the revival, it was kind of a little bit of a letdown, at least for me.
disappointing.
It felt like kind of odd, kind of out of nowhere. It felt out of the character of the writing, which had kind of just decided that we didn't need to know who Mr. Kim was, or if there even was a Mr. Kim. And I think the same thing would apply to Kirk and his siblings. If we had ever seen Kirk's siblings for example, the revival, I think it would have been weird. It would have felt a little like, I kind of wanted to see it, but now that I've gotten it, I wish that it hadn't happened. And I think the same thing for marriage.
And
I think the idea of like Kirk marrying Lulu sounds, in the abstract, sounds kind of interesting, but had it happened, I think it would have really it would have not worked well for the character.
I feel like if Kirk and Lulu got married, it would be kind of similar to Howard on The Big Bang Theory getting married. Like, he really didn't transition well at first, and then it took a while to become like an actual adult. But I do agree that the Mr. Kim thing was very like, it was cute because it's like, oh well, there he is, but like it was very off-putting and it didn't feel like it fit who we knew him to. Like, if he's going to be similar to Mrs. Kim, it just didn't seem right
Well, it's
to
kind of
me
like
personally.
it reminds me a little bit of this. There was a TED talk I remember, from like a decade ago or longer, actually, that J.J. Abrams did about this he talked about this magic box that he got as a boy, and from a magic store, and that he still had the magic box, and how he never opened it because the mystery of what was in that magic box was stronger than anything that could possibly be in that magic box. And I feel like Mr. Kim was in the magic box, and I would have rather him stay in the magic box because that was more compelling to not know, but to know that he existed, or to feel like, or to have that question there. But once we opened the magic box and pulled out a Mr. Kim doll, it was like all of a sudden all of that exciting mystery about what was there was just gone.
He
Is
I
certainly
like
left
is
lost in the magic box, didn't
I liked how they did
He
it
left
though.
lost in the magic box. He sure did.
he?
can,
He just left
can I
it in there.
clarity?
Certainly never opened it up for any of us
he,
for the rest of us
he,
to enjoy.
he
That's
didn't. He really
awesome.
didn't.
Since you mentioned the magic box thing from J.J. Abrams, is that where the box comes from in Felicity? Like
Yeah, I
Megan's
mean,
box?
I think
It's
that
tricky.
he mentioned that as a like a running through line in all of his work, that his work is sort of inspired
Wow.
largely by this magic box that he got when he was a child. His grandfather took him to a uh, to a magic store, and he was able to buy anything there at the magic store, and he decided to buy this magic box that had stuff in it. If you opened it, you'd find all these magic things, like, that a magician would use. But I think he interpreted it as, this magic box has these it, had probably a big question mark on it, had all these things that made it super mysterious. And he didn't want to open it because he feared that if he opened it, all of the excitement that he had about what it could possibly be would be gone. And that's, Obviously, that's what he did for Lost. There's no question about that. But it sounds like he did that for other things as well.
So
I just
Anyway.
love the box in Felicity, and he did open the box, and I thought that episode was really cool, and that's all I'm going to say about it. So there.
Oh,
Well, that was very
I don't know.
Twilight Zone, Amanda. So he's like, he took the magic box and he turned it into the
Exactly.
Twilight Zone.
Schrodinger's cat.
Exactly. It was beautiful.
Felicity
So-
is my favorite TV show of all time. So
You should
yeah,
watch
I
all
said
the
it.
J.J. Abrams stuff then.
We're closing in on 2 p.m. here. I know that Sean, you've been giving us some of your time here, which has been super gracious. But I don't want to obviously monopolize too much of it. If anybody has any last questions for Sean before he heads off to wash off the Guardians rehearsal, to wash off your
Yeah,
makeup.
I have time for one. I have time for another question.
Was any of that rehearsal? I won't ask. Let it be a surprise.
You can ask me. What do you want to ask?
Oh, was it rehearsal for Kraglin or was it rehearsal for mocap?
Oh, that I can't answer. But I don't
There
actually.
That would have just affected whether
okay.
or not you're actually going in to because I would imagine if it was for mocap, you'd probably have like some stuff that was drawn on your face so that you need to.
No. I don't actually do mocap for Guardians. I do motion reference and play. I play Rocket on set, but we don't do mocap.
Okay.
Although that's we'll do that when we do the Guardians show podcast.
Great. Great. But if anybody has any last questions for Sean before he heads out, please. I think that you could probably take a question or two, huh?
Yeah, I got time for one more, and then I gotta get going.
All right, great. Anybody have any questions?
Chocolate or vanilla ice cream?
Firefly with us.
Yeah, we start
chocolate or vanilla ice cream, Sean. That's your question. That's the one that's the big question that you got before you go.
And
so
if
you
he's
gotta
joining
make
us for
a
Firefly.
count. Gotta make a count.
I'm too. I can't answer that question because a good vanilla is better than a mediocre chocolate, and a good chocolate is better than a mediocre vanilla.
And I was expecting.
So, like, who's making it, and what are they making it out of?
I was expecting vanilla with hot Cheetos and chocolate sauce. That's what I was expecting you to say.
So it sounds pretty good.
So you're saying if you knew an ice cream maker is known for making both an incredible vanilla and an incredible chocolate, that you wouldn't be able to choose between the two?
A scoop of each.
Well, known by who? Who are they known by for making that?
This is getting very philosophical.
What about known by you?
Question.
What about what about you tasted their vanilla once, then you tasted their chocolate and was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing as well."
I'd probably get a scoop of each in the same dish. That sounds great.
He's a black and white cow kind of guy.
Love it.
But anyway, I find almost all ice cream I think is a little too sweet. So if it's not too sweet, it's like, anyway.
Did I hear a cat?
Oh, that's cool.
All right, one more. Does anybody have a Gilmore Girls related question?
Well,
no, you guys have solved it all. I love it.
You've answered everyone perfectly.
You guys have come to the end of the you pieced it all together. I love it.
Well, I think that we just enjoy. To be honest with you, I think we just enjoy chatting with you. One thing that makes these discussions a little different from your typical Q&A panel is that they're not really super focused on trying to answer questions, and it's just a little bit more about just getting to know somebody who was in your living room for a decade.
I have a very quick Gilmore question, actually. I'm going to break your sweet message, John. So, sorry, no, we're not in it just to chat. We want to know things. In the revival, when Kirk realizes that a BLT actually has bacon because of Petal, do you think Kirk suddenly went vegan? Are we going to know that there's a vegan Kirk out in the world?
Kirk seems to me like, now this is separate from Sean. Kirk seems to me like the kind of person who would say he was vegan, but like cheat constantly.
I can absolutely agree with that. That's correct.
But I'd like to believe, I don't know. You don't have to be a vegan to stop eating, factory farmed pigs. So hopefully he at least did that.
You're welcome for
Interesting.
that very mind-blowing question.
I appreciate it. I do have to get going, you guys. I love chatting with y'all.
Thanks for
Thanks for
hanging.
hopping
Thanks
in,
for
Thank you
dropping
Sean.
so much,
in.
Sean.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Peace,
Have
everybody.
a good
Have fun.
day.
Bye.
Be well.
That was a
Oh
fun
shoot!
surprise.
I was actually telling him like, oh, thanks, dude. That was great. It was such a nice surprise that you joined us. And then I looked down and my mic was muted.
Oh
This
Good
is
no.
gonna
job. Good job.
this
It's
is
not like
gonna
you've
be a
been doing
number.
this for a while.
That's gonna be a number one priority for Sean and I to make sure that doesn't. All right, I'm out. I
Bye,
will talk to you
John.
very soon.
Thank you so
Bye, everyone.
much, Sean.
Thank
Bye,
Bye,
you.
John.
John.
Yeah.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
day,
Good night,
John.
John.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Night,
Bye.
everybody. Good
Bye.
night.